If you want to hunt large pelagic species, the best way to be successful is to use a slip tip to land that fish. If you're going to shoot dogtooth, you want to use cable. If you're going to shoot anything else, Dyneema is sufficient. There's several components that you'll have: the slip tip itself, the slide ring, and the base which threads to the shaft. You will need to find a source of high quality Dyneema. You can either use 1.7 or 2 millimeter, pretty much whatever you can fit in the slot under the pin, you can use to splice. You want hollow core Dyneema. You're going to need a splicing needle with an eye that is large enough to not only fit the diameter of Dyneema through, but also of a small enough diameter to fit in the center so you can splice. So I'm about to show you from start to finish how to splice your own slip tip. The first consideration when rigging a slip tip is the finish quality of the slip tip itself, how this channel was machined. Now, this feels a little sharp to me, not sharp enough to cut the Dyneema, but sharper than I'd like it to be. So what I'll do is I'll take a flat file and I'll just get in here and smooth that down, take any burrs away. You can also use a carbide bit on a Dremel, but you want to get it to where you feel very comfortable that the Dyneema is not going to get cut or chafed on that channel. The next question is, how long of a piece of Dyneema do I need to cut? Well, that all depends on the species that you intend to hunt. If you're just going to shoot like an Ono or a Mahi, you can go relatively short. But if you intend to shoot tuna or marlin, you may want this finish section to be about 2 feet in length. I typically will use a 55 or 140 centimeter piece of 2 millimeter Dyneema, which I've cut here. And the first thing we're going to want to do is come back 4 inches or 10 centimeters and make a kink in the line. That's our center. Once we have our center, the shorter piece is the male, the longer is the female. To feed the female side through the pin, I'll just get that wet, and I like to come forward, and that'll slide right up. Now you want to pull that up to the center where you have your kink, and you want to come 1 inch past the kink. The next thing we need to do from this point is loosen up this Dyneema. So you can kind of use a twisting and compressing movement, and you're going to continue to do this until you get all the way to the end. So I'll go all the way out and then come all the way back to make sure I get it nice and open and uniform, so you can see the difference of it being opened and it being tight. I've just gone all the way out, and now I'm going to come all the way back to make sure everything is nice and uniform before I attempt to introduce the male section into the female section. Now we're going to introduce the needle into the female section that we loosened. So do your best to get it in the center and keep it in the center. You don't want it coming out the side. If it does come out the side, all you got to do is back it up, get it back in the middle, and just keep introducing that through the center. Once you get in a distance that you can stand the needle up, keep your line vertical as you can. Try to avoid it coming out the sides. And you're going to continue to put this onto the needle until you've packed on as much as you can. Now that I've gotten all of the female Dyneema portion onto the needle, and we still have our 1 inch space here, you want to get yourself some pliers, grip the needle tightly, and now we need to get this back over the male portion. So if you kind of hold your fingers and then just do a light twisting motion, and you can kind of work that on. Keep going till you get to the very end. Once you get to the end, keep the needle on, but pinch this section. And now you're going to pull this back toward the slip tip until you close off that loop. Just keep pushing it down until that loop is nice and tight. Should end up looking like this. Once you get it nice and tight and closed off to the slip tip, now you come the other direction, and now you're tightening that webbing back up. At this point, you can remove your needle, and that is going to come over itself like so. So this is single strand and the double strands there. Now you need to moisten that up so you can get that pushed through your slide ring. Pull that on the slide ring a couple of inches. Now you're going to do a double overhand knot. Make a loop and come through one and a second time. Now it's very important that your knot ends up on the doubled up portion and not on the single portion, because you don't want it to pull through. Work your knot down a little tighter and then moisten that. And get your pliers, grab the tail, pull this as tight as you can in this direction, and then I'm going to take it over to my vise to really cinch this down. Now I have a cut off piece of spear shaft in my vise. I put the slide ring in there. I put that through the channel, and now we can put our weight. Now watch how much this tail is going to shrink. So I'm going to put my weight on this. Okay, that's by hand. And then I'm going to get my foot in there. And I'm going to apply as much weight as I can. Now that knot is super tight and it's not going to come apart. Now that we have this leftover tail, that's the double part, that's the single. I'm just going to cut the frayed section off of the single. And then we're going to take our torch and we're going to close this off, burn it all the way around, get a nice mushroom there. And we want to leave ourselves a tail like this, so if there's a lot of stress on this knot, it's not going to easily pull through. So if you recall, we started off with a 55-inch piece of Dyneema, and now that we've got this slide ring on, spliced, tied off, we end up with a piece that's 22 inches from here to the knot, which is plenty Dyneema to land a really big fish. Now, let's install this onto the shaft. Whenever you're ready to apply your slip tip to your threaded shaft, I like to put the shaft onto the gun and engage in the trigger mech, because that's going to keep it from rotating, especially with these LG sub slip tips. They come with their own base wrench that fits right on there. And the great thing about this is you can take it on and off in the water or the boat if you have to, if your slip tip gets embedded into the fish and you can't remove it. And you don't have to use like channel locks and scuff this up. So before you put this base on, you want to get your slide ring on the shaft first. Get yourself some anti-seize lubricant, and you want to apply just a little bit to the threads here. I'll put a little bit on each side. A little goes a long way. And then you get your base And we thread that on. I like using the anti-seize because there's gonna come a time when you're gonna need to remove it. And if you don't use this stuff, you won't be able to get it off. Now we take the base wrench, and because our shaft is engaged in the mech, I just grab the barrel and the shaft firmly here. And now I can rotate this on. Get that nice and tight. Now don't kill it, but just get it so it's nice and snug. And now our base is on there nice and solid. We can pull this through the side ring. And we're good to go. So that is how to rig your own slip tip from start to finish. Good luck out there, guys. Shoot a monster. Aloha.